Hello, this is George Perez, and you are watching Variant Edition. And I suppose you know that.
Hi, and welcome to Variant Edition, your first weekly video podcast about comic book culture. I'm Mike.
And I'm Kevin.
Filling in for Rick.
Yeah, you know, real life kind of steps in sometimes, and, you know, when you get paid for a living, sometimes you gotta go to work.
Absolutely. The rest of us who don't get paid for a living, we do a show on the internet about comic books. Anyway, so we've got a big show for you today.
Yeah.
We've got 2 interviews. We got an
interview with George Perez that Nick did in Baltimore, and then we got one that Ricky did with Eric Larson.
Eric Larson of Savage Dragon fame, now running Image Comics.
Exactly.
One and the same.
Yep. Very cool guy. Very nice guy.
We've got some reviews coming up. You've got some reviews coming up.
Yeah, I actually
Nick's
got a couple.
some reviews coming up.
You've got some reviews coming up?
I've said that first, sir. So let's just get going with the show, and here goes Nick with the news.
Hi, I'm Nick, and this is the news for Wednesday, October 18th, 2006. For those of you paying attention, we didn't really have any news last week, so here's some quick news bits to get you caught up. The trailer for 300, you know, that Frank Miller book by Dark Horse, finally been released. Do yourself a favor and check it out. Viz Media's Naruto has been named one of the winners of the Quill Awards. Volume 7 was given the award for Best Graphic Novel, the first for a manga. IDW has obtained the comic publishing rights to Star Trek. IDW will launch a new 6-issue Trek mini in January, with Star Trek The Next Generation, The Space Between. Expect further announcements from IDW as Star Trek enjoys its 40th anniversary. Sometime troubled comic publisher Alias has decided to discontinue its mainstream comic line and move exclusively to the Christian market. Some will see this as a no surprise, as they already publish a number of Christian-related titles. The changeover takes place officially in January. Any current ungodly books will be allowed to wrap up their current storylines. Justice League Heroes, the upcoming video game featuring DC premier superhero group, has launched its first salvo of promotion with a new podcast. The podcast features a prequel comic to the Xbox and PS2 game and is currently available on iTunes. Virgin Animation has announced that it will co-produce a new animated film with Kahani World called Secrets of the Seven Sounds. The film, the first from the new partnership, is inspired by the ancient Indian myth Ramayana. Comic fans will remember that Virgin has launched itself into the comic market this year with a number of interesting books. Comics are making the news in Marshall, Missouri, after a complaint that the contents of 2 graphic novels in the library were pornographic. Really? Must have been some good stuff those kids were reading. Oh wait, it's Only Blankets by Craig Thompson and Fun Home by Alison Bedchill. I guess they don't stock any manga at that library. The offending books were removed from circulation and will be part of an upcoming review by the library staff. The Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and the National Coalition Against Censorship sent a joint letter to the board decrying the removal of the books. Many online have jumped on the bandwagon against the removal. Library officials have said that they will form a new committee to determine a formal material selection policy that the books will then be judged against the new standard. Pretty tame choices to start a crusade against comics, if you ask me. It wouldn't be a week in the news if there wasn't some sort of comic book movie related announcement. Just think, it used to be years between comic book movie announcements. Anyway, Iron Man has finally got a director earlier this year in Jon Favreau. Now it has a star. Robert Downey Jr. has been tapped to play Tony Stark. And before I say anything, who better to play a man battling with his demons than a man who has battled his demons? Perfect stunt casting. In even more Iron Man news, the role of Jim Rhodes, Stark's best friend and sometimes bodyguard, will be played by Academy Award nominee Terrence Howard. Ain't that a cast that'll make you see that movie once? And finally, some award news. Spike's inaugural Scream Awards were held recently. The awards celebrate the best and brightest in the worlds of sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and comics. So if you saw the award show, you know the winners, but for most of you, here they are. Frank Miller was honored as a comic book icon and won the award for Best Comic Book Writer for his work on All-Star Batman and Robin. Uncompleted work? Anyway, Sean Phillips, on the other hand, won Best Comic Artist for his penciling on Marvel Zombies, which also won for Best Comic Book. V for Vendetta won for Best Sci-Fi Movie, and the award for Best Comic Book Adaptation went to X-Men The Last Stand. So on that note, quickly call your cable or satellite provider and let them know you don't want Spike TV on your programming. Jen's got a review of the new Anita Blake Vampire Hunter coming up next week, but if you like what she has to say, you might have a hard time finding a copy. Marvel announced last week that the first new book released under Marvel's collaboration with the Dable brothers has sold out at Diamond. While some stores still have copies, the entire print run sold out at the distributor level in one day. Marvel and the Dable brothers are discussing a second printing to ensure that stores are able to keep this book in stock. Before we wrap up, I'd like to introduce a very special guest commentator. Later in the episode, Kevin will be reviewing Jeff Amano and Andy McDonald's new book, Red Warrior, Assassin for the Thieves World. Since the book is about the Russian mafia and secret government agents, we thought it only appropriate to get Kami Batman's thought on the book. So Kami Batman, welcome to Variant Edition. It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, anytime, anytime. So, with Red Warrior, there was a lot of about the, the Russian mob and the crime syndicates that go on in Russia. Did they do a good job depicting this, or?
Da, it's very good outlook on how under-city crime is going well. In a bad way, but, I do best. These two Jason Todsky, huh?
Kami Batman, everyone! So that wraps up the news for this week, and here's my George Perez interview. Well, I'm here at the Baltimore Comic-Con with George Perez, and he's here right now sketching at the con. How has the con been going for you?
Oh, this has been a phenomenal event. I mean, in addition to it being one of the best comic book specific conventions in the country, I got my very first Lifetime Achievement Award. Now I feel
Yes.
old. Yes.
We got coverage of that the other night.
Oh yes. Now I really feel old.
But that award was definitely well deserved, and I believe everybody there felt that way for your acceptance of the award.
And I'm grateful to everybody. And after talking to my wife and realize, as I mentioned, the fact that she actually knew about this ever since I said I wasn't going to be attending the Harveys, everyone was in a panic. And finally, when I did show up there, Mark Nathan and Jim McLaughlin, of course, everyone was relieved because they had an award ready for me. And
well, speaking of awards, everybody gets an award because they do, great works, and you, such as yourself, have done great works, and one of those has been Crisis on Infinite Earth. So is there any information or anything you'd like to comment about that, how it was to work on that?
Well, that was a dream come true because I got to draw everybody in the DC universe, and and in a great story, Marv Wolfman, when he came up with the concept of Crisis on Infinite Earths, he didn't know if I would have the time to do it, but once I heard about it, there was no way I was going to let anyone else do it.
Yeah, how could you turn something like that down?
The ultimate fanboy dream, to draw everybody in the DC universe in a big story, getting to draw obscure characters that when else would I have gotten the chance to do? Dolphin, the Atomic Knight, the Metal Men. I mean, when was I going to get a chance to draw those characters otherwise?
With Crisis on Infinite Earth, how was it going from that and then going back into Infinite Crisis? And do you think there was a drastic change with any of that?
Well, one of the biggest difference between Crisis and Infinite Crisis, Crisis was basically the dream of one individual, Marv Wolfman primarily, while Infinite Crisis was a company book, which was basically a book by committee, where the entire company was in on the actual plotting session. So I think there's a certain unity to the original Crisis, the certain vision that was unique to it. And of course, Infinite Crisis was almost like a deconstruction of it, because they were trying to take what worked on Crisis and break it down into components and try to recreate it. One of the examples was looking at a script from Infinite Crisis and seeing how they describe a page and saying, God, no one's going to be able to draw that. And then I realized what they've actually done is taken what I used to do in Crisis, one of the pages, and if it had been broken down to describe the page, that's what it would have looked like. It's very daunting when you see it in print.
Yeah.
You have all these characters doing this. This character does this character does this. And then on panel 2, but technically what they were doing is what I had already done, but breaking it down into a descriptive term. And I think in the case of Crisis on Infinite Earth, the one thing it always has a distinction of being is the fact that it had not been done before.
Right.
And when they asked me to be involved in the Infinite Crisis, I thought it was only just for covers. And then in issue 2, when they asked me and Jerry Ordway to recreate some of the scenes from the original, that's fine. I didn't expect to be involved quite as much in drawing the actual miniseries, but I think that became a necessity because the artist was falling behind schedule and they needed artists to fill in. And once I signed exclusivity with DC Comics, they wanted me more involved in that book because, again, when it started, I had no idea it was a direct sequel. I just thought they were doing a Crisis-style book, not knowing that they were taking elements from the original Crisis and doing a genuine sequel to the book. So, of course, then they wanted me and Marv to be a little more involved than we were before. And the only regret I had in that is a lot of fans regret. Marv and I went out of our way to keep the Golden Age Superman alive.
Yeah.
And obviously he did not make the final cut, as it were, at the end of Infinite Crisis. But one thing at least I got to do with that is that I did not want the last image of the Golden Age Superman to be a bloody pulp lying on a planet. So I added the scene of him and Lois in their prime in the stars, because I said, no, that's the last scene I want to do of the Golden Age.
Yeah, it's much more of a positive image.
Exactly, because I did not realize until I read the rest of the plot that there was no funeral scene for the character. So this was it. This was his last appearance. So if you'll notice on that page, there's a lot of silhouettes, which is not something I do ordinarily, but I did not want to focus so heavily on him being a bloody mess and wanted to give him a dignified send-off.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of fans respect that, which is, actually an awesome move. Your enthusiasm of your work is very refreshing because you are a comic book fan. You're so incredibly excited to do something, like that with all those characters. It's great to see such passion and effort put forth by someone like you.
I can't even imagine what my life would have been if I hadn't been a comic book artist. I mean, this is the job I've wanted to do since I was a kid. So here I am now, still with this great thrill of seeing my name in print. I still love, oh my God, my name's in print. People are talking about me. And it still jazzes me. I mean, I still love looking at that blank page and feeling the challenge of, okay, let's see if I can fill this up and make it interesting. Sometimes I'm actually drawing and looking at my own hand and saying, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's still an incredible buzz, I tell you.
Yes. Well, some wise words from George Perez, and thank you for taking your time for us.
Thank you, guys.
And hope you enjoy the con.
Yes, and for those who haven't been to the Baltimore convention, put it on your schedule for next year. Mark Nathan and his gang put on a hell of a show.
So this week I took a look at Sensational Spider-Man number 31. This was a great comic that kind of picks back up where it left off last time with Will-the-Wisp, Scarecrow knockoff, and the Molten Man. I'm not a big fan of any of those characters, but they're fair demons. They mentioned Swarm a little bit. I finally found out who Swarm was because I Wikipedia'd it. Well, he's a Nazi. Anyway, back on track, we've got the Chameleon, who is pulling all the strings in the story, as it would be. He's actually with Aunt May, and Aunt May does a little silly something later on in the comic book towards the end. Anyway, Peter Parker finds out, that it's been a farce with this boy that's been kidnapped, and it's all just been a distraction so the Chameleon can go and kill Aunt May. And Peter Parker is racing back to Avengers Tower, where Aunt May is sitting with the Chameleon in Peter Parker garb. It's also very important to note here that she serves him cookies, oatmeal raisin cookies. Peter Parker's least favorite of all cookies, because he's a ginger snap sort of guy. I don't even know why that's important to this story. The only thing you need to know is that Aunt May poisons the Chameleon, or at least makes him think that she poisoned him using the common household variety of almond extract. Read this comic. It was a lot of fun. If you like Spider-Man, keep looking forward to this comic. They're bringing out a lot of old villains, and it just seems to be going more along the whole line of Peter Parker unmasking himself and the troubles that are now taking over his life, worrying about his family. I think it's showing a very interesting side of the whole Civil War incident.
All right, so if you're paying attention a few episodes ago, I did a advanced review kind of thing of some stuff in previews. One of those books was Red Warrior, Assassins for the Thieves World by Jeff Amano and Andy McDonald. And I had a little preview thing of it, and it looked kind of cool. Came out last week, read it. It's actually pretty good. Basically, it's, Red Warrior. It's got a big, sickle and, AK-47 on the cover. So you're probably assuming it has something to do with the Russians. And it does. There's an assassination, and there's some Russian operatives investigating this assassination. And, as the story goes on, you find out that there's some, Russian special forces are probably behind it. So the Russian operative, a guy named Tolik, has basically been told that he needs to investigate what's going on, and see what he can do about it, because they can't have these like rogue operatives kind of working in the country, in the United States. So he does. He finds out a few things. Finds out that some of these operatives have, I don't know, they have some abilities that they kind of refer to as bespredel, which is means without limits, which was also a term that they used in Russia for after the fall of communism and all that stuff. But basically, there are these warriors who, it's not very clear exactly how they got it, but they have, through training, it's not like it's a special thing that they got, but through training, they're able to like focus their energy. And so they can like direct it at people, or conversely, take it back and then rechannel it to them. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of like, you have the Chinese have the whole thing with the Qi. This is like a similar thing, except they're not mutants, they're not superheroes. It's a little more down to earth than that. So long story short, they find out that the quickest way to find the rest of these operatives is to go through the organized crime syndicate. They find this woman, Elena, whose father was also assassinated, during this thing when they were figuring that something was going on. And they turn her, well, not really turn her, but get them to work for them to get close with another guy, another big wig in the Russian mafia, who was probably behind her death, and to basically root out who these rogue operatives are. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty taut thriller. There's like, they throw in some Russian words, so it's got some flavor in it, and the art's really, really tight. I had only had experience to Andy McDonald's art through NYC Mech. It's cool to see him draw people, and like I'd said before, he really can draw people. This is a cool book. It's a nice crime, espionage thriller. I'd say, I can't really give much more than what I have basically said about it without giving the story away, but I'd say give it a shot.
This week I read Elephant Men #4. Now, as everybody knows, don't really know much about this story like the previous stuff, but anyway, issue #4 was great because it tied into 3, which tied into 2, and continuity I'm a big fan of. So, in issue 4, you see what happens to Hip Flask after the incident at the canals, where he had the fight with the Crocodile Man, and then he was recovered by the cabbie, and then, you find out where they're taking him to. They bring him back to this, it's kind of like a hospital for elephant men. They're carried away in, like, hazmat trucks, flying hazmat trucks. And the girl who finds him, she follows the hazmat truck because she still has his nice African statue. Don't really know anything about it. You just know that it's really important. There's some strong significance to it, and apparently maybe something connected to the Crocodile Man. Not too sure. But the whole point was for her to bring it back to him, and she's kind of given somewhat of like a dime tour by Ebenezer, who is the actual elephant man. And their tour of the hospital is nice because he can't really show her much because, she's not really allowed, but he shows her one thing, and it was a former, I guess you can call him comrade, that him and Hip Flask knew, and they refer to him as Tusk, and he's a warthog man, but he's a warthog man who was bred and made and trained and all that to pretty much, be a warrior like everybody else, but one of his special abilities was to absorb poisons, like his body to absorb poisons and force them out, to be immune to them. So this thing has been pumped with pretty much every poison known to man at this point. This is in the future, so there's probably more in him than we would have now. And his mind's kind of messed up. So that's going into, that's a nice introduction of a new character. That's a really cool idea. This messed up, kind of like junky warthog man. I like the sound of it. So if you're into crazy half-man, half-animal shenanigans, Elephant Men #4 is for you.
So this week I took a look at Shadow Pact #6. I've been reading the Shadow Pact, Infinite Crisis 2 now, and I think it's kind of lacking. It looks like the artist has gotten kind of lazy as far as Ragman's concerned, and I think if you pay attention, you know what I'm talking about. Storyline, it's a little weak now. It's kind of odd. They're out of the bubble, and they're going about their lives. They're trying to pick up from 1 year later. The Oblivion Bar is no longer with Swordsman. It's an odd sort of thing going on, an odd transition with Shadow Pact. You got Detective Champ wants to smoke in the bar, and Flippy says he can't. That's right, Flippy, the seal boy, who somehow has telekinetic magic abilities now. Not even going to touch that one. Important part to know here is that it's this Dr. Gotham character that came up in Shadow Pact number 5 is now just throwing all these, villain assets at the Shadow Pact, trying to keep them distracted from what is actually going on inside with what he's doing. Dr. Gotham is now a brand new character in the story, and I'm interested to see where it's going, but at the same time, it's starting to slag off on things. The stories, you threw in the Blue Devil story a couple issues back, didn't seem to make sense, just to blow it in there, whatever. It's just losing its flavor. It's not as good as the Infinite Crisis Shadow Pact, so I hope they kick it up, and the next couple issues will be better.
So this week I'm also taking a look at Pirates of Coney Island #1. This is an odd book. It's not bad, but it's kind of an odd book. First, because the first issue you don't even see the fabled Pirates of Coney Island. Basically, it's a setup. We meet the main character. We still haven't... I don't think we actually find out his name in the book. He's actually asked his name, and he doesn't answer it. But we get a pretty good feel of what the comic's going to be about. This kid, he's a runaway. He's on the subway. The last stop's Coney Island. Everybody off. He gets off, and he gets basically taken down by a gang of girls, and they're bad girls. They're really bad girls. They take his eye. Yeah, it's pretty harsh. I like Rick Spears. I like most of his other stuff that he's done. Most of what I've read in the past, I've read collected. So, for me, this kind of felt like a little bit of a slow start. Again, we don't even see the pirates or whatever the pirates are going to be in this first issue. But I don't know. I want to see the next issue. It's weird, but it kind of has a really dark mood to it that makes me want to see where it's going. The art by Vasilis Lolos is kind of cool. It's not really pretty, but that's what makes it cool. The characters are kind of ugly and exaggerated. It has a really cool style. They had some preview pages of the second issue. Looks like he's going a little more Jamie Hewlett in the second issue, but I don't know. It looks pretty interesting. And based on Rick Spears, his previous works, I think I'm going to give the second issue a shot.
Hi, this is Ricky, Baltimore Comic Con, and I'm honored to be joined by Eric Larson. Eric, thank you for joining.
It's a pleasure.
All right, so overall, how's the con been going for you?
It's been just terrible. It's been devastating.
Well,
I lost the use of my legs at this convention.
I'm really sorry to bring that up. Wow. So back to matters at hand. Savage Dragon still going very strong. How's it been going with that? How are numbers been? Response to it and everything?
They've been good, and things seem to be building, so that's a good thing. Last year I didn't do a whole heck of a lot of issues of this Savage Dragon book. I was working on American Flag.
Plug away.
And I ended up coloring most of this thing. A lot of it was going over the original comics and finding what the original colors were and using those and getting it nailed. And I really learned a lot from coloring this American Flag thing and recoloring it and figuring out a bunch of this stuff. So much so that when I came back to doing Savage Dragon this year, I wanted to color the book. And so I've started coloring the book again for the first time, really, on an ongoing basis with issue 122, and I've been doing that ever since. And then like an insane person, I decided, what would make it complete would be if I lettered the book. So I started doing that as well.
Awesome. All right, and you worked on Howard Chaykin on American Flag. What was that experience like?
It was good. I wasn't actually, I didn't talk to Howard a whole heck of a lot because Howard's a great guy, and we're fine at conventions and hanging out and stuff like that. I always have a great time with Howard. But on this is work that he did a while back, and so he's very hands off. And in terms of coloring, I think he's colorblind. So. So it was really like, as long as he's red, white, and blue, we're in good shape, and that's really what I was going for. All
right, so you're still doing Savage Dragon,
yeah.
And do you have any other future plans for books coming out, or are you strictly, just concentrating on Savage Dragon?
Savage Dragon is it, for me, at least. I mean, that's the idea. I really, because right now I'm the publisher at Image Comics, so just with that kind of a workload and doing everything on Savage Dragon at this point, I can't really do that much extra stuff. So there's a couple little things that I'm going to be writing that are coming up, little mini-series and stuff like that. I don't want to talk about them too much until they're really going, because it's like, I love this stuff and I love these guys and everything, but if it turns out that somebody flakes on it, I don't want to be able to go, there's this permanent record of you saying you're going to be doing, yeah. But I've been working with some good guys, and some of this stuff, actually I did a 48-page story with Frank Fosco featuring a character from my book called Rock and the Rock House Diner, and it's just all set around there. It's about the Vicious Circle guys deciding they were going to get revenge against Rock and all that stuff for what had gone on with one of their characters that had come over and was threatening Rock earlier on, who ended up being disposed of. And so they're out for revenge, and it's actually a really cool story, and Frank Fosco worked on it. I worked with him on the Turtles before, and he's done a couple backups with me before, and so we're going to dump this 48-page story into an upcoming issue of Savage Dragon so it'll be an 80-page blockbuster, which is always fun, I love just having these fat comics that come out occasionally. Yeah, I love those things. They're great. So, and also we're collecting a bunch of Savage Dragon stuff in black and white in that sort of essentials format, just so people can get big fat chunks of this stuff rather than having to, like right now there's 20 some odd trades. It gets to be a little unwieldy. With this, we should be able to catch up to fairly current, and we should be able to fit it all in like 5 volumes and just be able to go, boom, here you go. And get, yeah. You have a lot of, whatever, but we can get pretty close to current.
All right, man, it's great. Thank you very much for doing this interview. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
It's an honor, sir. Thank you.
So that was our show for tonight, and what a great show it was. We got 2 great interviews.
Let's say a big show. It's like a double-sized show.
Well, more than our usual.
Yeah, because,
definitely more than
we try to do 1 interview a week, but, you get 2 for the price of 1.
And a special guest star.
And maybe you'll see Commie Batman again.
Maybe.
Who is Commie Batman?
That is the question we here at Variant Edition know already, and hopefully you will have to solve the clues that we'll put on the Da Vinci Code on our website. I have no idea where I'm going with that. Doesn't matter. Commie Batman.
I think he had too much of Commie Batman's vodka over there. Jeez.
Well, he offered.
So, check us out online. Obviously, you're seeing us online, but, we're on MySpace. We're on YouTube. We're on our website. We're on iTunes. I mean, if you can't find us, you're not looking.
And you can email us at I'm Mike at variantedition.com. You got Kevin at variantedition.com.
We got Nick, he's holding the microphone.
Nick at variantedition.com.
We got Ricky, he's working somewhere doing his thing.
And if you want to talk to Mr. Swistak about statues, you can go to statues at variantedition.com.
Yeah. Or we have the more general hate mail, fan mail. We do read them.
Oh, yeah.
And we do get both. We'll probably do another episode pretty soon.
And I do apologize to Greg for not responding. Well, we all apologize to Greg for not responding. Sometimes you just get bogged down with stuff. And
yeah.
We mean to, but we don't always get to.
Yeah, and speaking of which, hopefully this will be our first Thursday show. We'll see next week if we have our second Thursday show.
So hopefully they'll see us next Thursday? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's what I'm trying to say.
So the gremlins are finally dead?
I'm hoping that I've put them down once and for all.
Great, so AA worked out nicely.
So I think that's it.
That's it. That's the show. Come on back next week. Check us out. Keep it posted. We got some big things coming up in the near future.
Speaking of big things for next week, I'll give you a hint. 3 letters. BKV. Yeah, don't think too hard.
I think I blew a gasket.
So next week, BKV, and we'll do another video blog.
Absolutely, because it's fun.
That's fun.
So check out us next week.
Goodbye. Did that fizzle too much at the end?
What do you mean fizzle?
It kind of at the end. Was it okay?
That was fun. Well, no, it's fun because you're...
This is Eric Larson, and you're watching Variant Edition. Insert funny clip right here.